Welcome to Brainish English Stories.
The weather was very nice, so the people on the farm ate their lunch quickly and went back to the fields. The servant Rose stayed alone in the big kitchen. The fire was going out under the big pot of hot water. Sometimes she took some water from the pot and slowly washed her dishes. She stopped a few times to look at two lines of sunlight that came through the window and shone on the long table. The sunlight showed some dirty spots on the glass. 3 brave hens were picking up crumbs under the chairs. The smell of the chicken yard and the warm air from the cow stall came in through the half-open door. A rooster was crowing in the distance. When Rose finished her work, she wiped the table, dusted the shelf, and put the plates on the high shelf near the wooden clock that ticked loudly. She took a deep breath because she felt a little sad, but she didn't know why. She looked at the black clay walls and the wooden beams on the ceiling that were dark from smoke. Spider webs, smoked fish, and strings of onions hung from the beams. Then she sat down, feeling a bit tired. The air smelled old from the floor, where many things had spilled over time, and the warm air made this smell stronger. There was also a sour smell from the milk pans in the small dairy room next to the kitchen. She wanted to sew, as usual, but she didn't feel strong enough. So she went to the door to get some fresh air, which made her feel better. The chickens were lying on the warm manure pile. Some of them scratched the ground with one claw, looking for worms, and the rooster stood proudly in the middle of them. When he crowed, the roosters on other farms nearby crowed back, as if they were calling to each other from farm to farm. Rose looked at them without thinking. Then she looked up and felt almost blinded by the beautiful apple trees covered in flowers. Just then, a young horse full of energy jumped over a ditch and then stopped suddenly, looking surprised to be alone. Rose also wanted to run. She wanted to move, stretch her arms and legs, and relax in the warm air. She took a few small steps and closed her eyes because she felt a deep sense of comfort. Then she went to look for eggs in the hen loft. She found 13 eggs, which she took inside and put in the storeroom. But the smell in the kitchen bothered her again, so she went outside to sit on the grass for a while. The farmyard, with trees all around, seemed quiet and sleepy. The tall grass, with bright yellow dandelions like small suns, looked fresh and green. The apple trees cast shade around them, and the thatched roofs, where blue and yellow irises grew with long, sword-like leaves, looked warm, as if the moisture from the barns was coming through the straw. Rose went to the shed, where the carts and buggies were kept. Nearby, in a ditch, there was a big patch of violets, spreading their sweet smell in the air. Past the hill, she could see the open fields with green grain growing, groups of trees here and there, and small groups of workers who looked as small as dolls. There were also white horses that looked like toy horses, pulling a small cart with a man as tall as a finger sitting in it. She picked up a bundle of straw, threw it into the ditch, and sat down on it. But she didn't feel comfortable, so she opened it, spread it out, and lay down on her back. She put her arms under her head and stretched out her legs. Slowly, her eyes closed, and she started to feel very relaxed. She was almost asleep when she felt two hands on her chest, and she jumped up quickly. It was Jacques, one of the farm workers. He was a tall man from Picardy, and he had been trying to get her attention for a long time. He had been taking care of the sheep, and when he saw her lying in the shade, he came over quietly, holding his breath, with bits of straw in his hair and his eyes shining. He tried to kiss her, but she slapped him on the face because she was just as strong as he was. He quickly said he was sorry, so they sat down together and talked in a friendly way. They talked about the nice weather, their master who was a good man, their neighbors, the people in the nearby area, their village, their childhood days, their memories, and the family members who had left a long time ago, maybe forever. She felt sad as she thought about these things, while he, thinking about one thing only, moved closer to her. "I haven't seen my mother for a long time," she said. "It's very hard to be apart like that." She looked far away, in the direction of the village in the north where she came from. Suddenly, he grabbed her by the neck and kissed her again, but she punched him so hard in the face with her fist that his nose started bleeding. He got up and leaned his head against a tree. When she saw this, she felt sorry and went over to him, asking, "Did I hurt you?" But he just laughed. "No, it's nothing. You just hit me right in the middle of my nose. What a strong girl," he said, and he looked at her with admiration. She made him feel respect and a new kind of admiration, which was the start of real love for this tall, strong girl. When his bleeding stopped, he suggested they take a walk, as he was afraid of staying close to her for too long. But she took his arm as they walked down the path, like they were on an evening walk. She said, "It's not nice of you to look down on me like that, Jacques." He quickly said that he didn't look down on her. He was in love with her, that was all. "So you really want to marry me?" she asked. He hesitated and then looked at her from the side while she looked straight ahead. She had round, red cheeks, a full chest under her cotton jacket, thick red lips, and her neck, which was almost bare, was covered with small drops of sweat. He felt new desire and, leaning close to her ear, he whispered, "Yes, of course I do." Then she put her arms around his neck and kissed him until they were both out of breath. From that moment, the usual love story began between them. They teased each other in quiet corners, they met in the moonlight beside the haystack, and they playfully kicked each other under the table with their heavy boots. But after a while, Jacques seemed to lose interest in her. He avoided her, hardly spoke to her, and didn't try to meet her alone anymore, which made her sad and worried. Soon she found out that she was pregnant. At first, she was very shocked, but then she got angry. Her anger grew every day because she could not find Jacques. He avoided her very carefully. Finally, one night, when everyone in the farmhouse was asleep, she went outside quietly in her petticoat with bare feet, crossed the yard, and opened the door of the stable where Jacques was sleeping in a big box of straw above his horses. When he heard her coming, he pretended to snore, but she knelt down next to him and shook him until he sat up. "What do you want?" he asked her. She clenched her teeth, shaking with anger, and said, I want you to marry me, as you promised." But he just laughed and replied, "Oh, if a man married every girl he had made a mistake with, he would have too many wives." Then she grabbed him by the throat, pushed him onto his back so he could not get away, and, almost choking him, shouted in his face, "I am pregnant. Do you hear me? I am pregnant." He gasped for air as she was almost strangling him, and they both stayed there, still and silent in the dark. Only the sound of a horse pulling hay from the manger and slowly chewing it broke the silence. When Jacques realized she was stronger than him, he stammered, "All right, I will marry you if that's how it is." But she did not believe him. "It must be right away," she said. "You must announce the marriage in church." "Right away," he replied. "Swear to me you will." He hesitated for a moment, then said, "I swear it, by heaven." Then she let go of him and left without saying another word. For the next few days, she had no chance to speak with him. The stable was now always locked at night, and she was afraid to make noise because she did not want to make a scene. One morning, however, she saw another man come in at dinner time. She asked him, "Has Jacques left?" "Yes," the man replied. "I am taking his place." She started shaking so much that she could not lift the saucepan from the fire. Later, when everyone was working, she went up to her room and cried into her pillow so that no one would hear her. During the day, she tried to find out more about where Jacques went without making anyone suspicious. But she was so sad that she thought everyone she asked was laughing at her. All she learned was that he had left the area completely.